it's so hard for me to say anything about those kids because Mike. I wrestled with Mike against when Jake the Snake was down there, and before who's the guy that was killed because he owed the drug bill. My ex-wife Jeannie found him. Found him.
Oh, Gino Hernandez.
Gino Hernandez.
Did you know him?
Yeah, I knew him real well. I knew he was with some young girl of the mafia, and she was like 15 years old, and they through me because Gino worked through me said to tell Gino to leave. He had a warning. He had one warning, and he was lucky to get that. Don't be effing this 15-year-old mafia girl. And he continued to do it. And so I guess Jeannie lived next door or some whatever. She's the one that found him. But I don't know if it was cocaine or they went in and 86'd him. But it was a hot dose or something.
Supposedly they found the cocaine in the stomach, which, as you know, that's unusual. You wouldn't eat cocaine.
No, they got him.
Strange.
No, they got him.
And you were also a tag team with Gino Hernandez, as you touched on before. What was he like as a person, and what's your opinion on some people thinking that he may have been murdered due to the cocaine being found in his stomach?
Well, I tell you, it is. I knew Gino pretty well. I think that's certainly a possibility. I know that he liked to gamble a lot, and but he was working for Dallas. He and I had already finished, but not too long before that happened, when I had just gone to North Carolina, we tried to hire him and get him to come to North Carolina. He may still be alive and have a great career and be on the interview with me if he'd have moved out there. But he liked Dallas and liked his lifestyle there, and but he was a tremendous talent, and there's a lot of great matches that he would have ended up having that were cut short when he was when his life ended, and it was tragic. It was. Gino's not here with us, but it's just as tragic as when Magnum's career came to an end because of the car wreck, and it's things like that are just impactful to people that were close to him. So.
And how did Gino treat you? Was he open to having you as a valet?
He really liked the idea because of the angle with Stella back then. Like the guys didn't touch the girls at all. That was just totally taboo. And then you really didn't want to have a guy like beating up a girl at this time. So then bringing me in took the heat off from him because he could like sick me on Stella May and we could get heat that way without becoming like a total asshole and then losing the crowd, because then I would get the heat and not him. So it worked out really well. Plus, and we'd been friends since I was like 15, 16 years old. And he knew that I had a huge crush on him. And he was really good because he could have really taken advantage of the situation and didn't. It was very strictly professional. We only made one road trip together. We rode to like Abilene, and then I rode back with some other people. But, Gino was kind of mysterious in his own way. And since I saw the dark side of the ring, I kind of understand more now of like what he was going through and that like that second life that he was leading. Shoot, I didn't even know he was married and had kids whenever I was working with him. He was that, just the business was one part of his life and then his other life was another life.
So the rumors that you dated him, those are just rumor and innuendo?
Oh, I never, Gino and I never kissed. We never, no, nothing. No,
So you never saw that the side of the dark side of the ring with the drugs and that underworld side of him that he
no.
was.
I know that he had like his friend that was down in Houston. He had the bar that he went to, and there was always kind of the deal of like he was doing something that he shouldn't have been doing. And I thought it was more gambling. I didn't know it was so much the drugs. I didn't know that he was doing the cocaine like what he did. No.
When I interviewed Jake Roberts, he alluded that Gino had like some connections to the gay community. Did you ever see anything like that?
Mm. That's a first on me. And what's cool is Jake and I started in Dallas at the same time. Jake actually opened up the door to the TV studio on a Friday, the very first time that we went and did TV together.
And for Gino's death, what was your reaction when he passed away? And at the time, did you think it was just an overdose, or was there a controversial rumor around during those
Oh,
days?
there was a lot of controversy about it, and it was like the amount of cocaine that they said that was in his system, and everybody, because I've never done coke. I've done a lot of other stuff, but I've never done coke, and kind of stayed away from that. I saw with like some of the guys working how much money they spent and what a waste it was. And I know like with my personality that if I tried it, I would probably like really, really like it. And I knew that that wasn't like the road I wanted to go down. But like with Gino, whenever I heard that, it seemed very odd that he was by himself and the whole situation of the whole deal, like in my mind, he didn't die by himself, and he died like with some really, really bad people. And that makes me sad, that it was that situation. When the Dark Side of the Ring came out, and through talking with other people that were with him and in that situation, it just seems like he was just at the wrong place at the wrong, I don't want to say the wrong place at the wrong time. He'd gotten involved with the wrong people, and that he was expendable, and they got rid of him.
Any favorite memory of Gino?
Oh my gosh, how happy he was at the Cotton Bowl whenever they had won the 6-man titles, because he had like 3 title belts on, and that, how happy with like Chris and Jake and Gino and myself. That was like super fun, because like everybody was happy, and it was like we were really champions, and we were at the Cotton Bowl, and it was fun. It was a really, really fun day.
And you mentioned Gino Hernandez. A lot of people have said that he may have been murdered because of the cocaine he overdosed on was found in his stomach. What do you think of that?
That's sort of like the Benoit thing, man. I'm not God, and I don't know. I know Gino was attached to some heavy people, and he was also attached to the gay factions down in Houston, and he was running in some pretty big circles, man, that maybe didn't belong. I don't know.
Gino Hernandez died of cocaine overdose. Yeah. Some people were saying they believe he was murdered because it was found in his stomach. Do you believe anything like that, or do you think it was just...
He had a serious drug problem. He was a partier. I mean, like animals, and intense, crazy partier, drinking, alcohol, the whole thing. I don't think so. I think if anything, karma. I believe that big time, and if anything, karma caught up with him.
What about Gino Hernandez?
Oh, Gino was there. I'll never forget. Gino came in with his Louis Vuitton bag, and I was like, oh my God, I love your suitcase. Where'd you get it? And he was like, it costs too much money for you. Oh. Or something like that. He said something like that to me, and I was like, wow, Gino, he's so cool. And then Gino asked me to go, there's this one bar in Dallas that you had to be in the book, like you had to be a member to get in, the Red Room or something. And I'll never forget that he asked me to go with him to it, to get to go. And so I met him there, and I got to go to the Red Room with Gino Hernandez, and I thought it was so cool, and Johnny was like, so how was it? Did you have a good time? And I was like, oh, I had a great time. Gino's so cool, I love Gino. And then I found out later from Rick Hazard that Gino wanted, after they did the hair at Texas Stadium, when they did the hair match, him and Chris did the hair match, that Gino wanted to do a thing. They wanted to put Sunshine with John. Me and John break up and me go with Gino, and then go against Johnny and Sunshine, me and Gino against Johnny and Sunshine, and then Gino had to pass away. That would have been a great angle.
Yeah, some people have said because I guess the cocaine was found in his stomach. That
He partied a lot. Yeah, it was the '80s. Yeah. Everybody did. Why do you think everybody loves the '80s so much?
Did you notice anything before he passed away that he was getting increasingly paranoid?
No, nothing at all. Couldn't tell anything. I just remember he went and bought himself a Porsche after he got his hair cut because he's like, I can't get a date without having a Porsche because I have bald head. So I got to buy a Porsche to get some women. And I was like, Gino, you don't need a Porsche to get women. You're too suave, you know.
I've heard that some people say that he would have really been the best person for the $1 Million Man gimmick.
Oh, yes, because that would have been totally him. Yeah, bad to the bone, Gino Hernandez. Loved him.
And
I heard there was so many women at his funeral crying over his casket.
Oh, I bet.
Even Chris Adams' wife. They were like throwing themselves on the casket. Yeah, and he was buried with his Platinum American Express card, which I think, because he was one of the first people to have one, which I think is cool.
Who would have had more groupies wanting him or the Von Erichs?
Oh my gosh. That's a tough one. Probably the Von Erichs, only because Kerry looked like a superstar. Whether he was a wrestler, football player, tennis pro, whoever. I mean, if Kerry walked into a room, if you didn't know wrestling, you would know he was somebody. You would think he's either an actor or something because he had superstar looks about him. So it's probably Kerry.
So you already had contacts with Fritz von Erich through your college days?
Yeah, just on a fluke meeting, he came up to me and said, kid, you might want to think about wrestling. And I was like, I think I'll be playing football for a while. But yeah, I called Fritz back up when I realized there was no future in football for me. And he brought me down to the Sportatorium. Gary Hart gave me my first pair of trunks. And I worked with Gino Hernandez quite a bit. And that's where I broke in the business.
And you mentioned Gino Hernandez. Did you get along well with him?
I got along great with Gino Hernandez. A lot of folks had trouble with the guy. He was gorgeous Gino Hernandez. I mean, he's a real handsome young guy. He had all the women, made a lot of money. So a lot of folks were jealous. And he was a little abrasive. But I actually got along with Gino, and he helped me out quite a bit in the early days.
And some people have speculated because of the way he died, the cocaine overdose was found in his stomach. They speculated some foul play was involved. What do you think about that?
Well, Gino, towards the end, he really got heavy into drugs. He was shooting drugs in his body. So, he started hanging around with some shady people. So you never know, but he was taking a lot of drugs.
And Gino Hernandez is another controversial death that you also had contact with him throughout your career. Any memories of him?
He was always trying to run roughshod over everybody. And I'd been in the business long enough, and I said, Gino, don't give me that BS. I'm not buying it. I'm not going for it. And just act like a normal person. And he started laughing like, well, okay, I can't pull my gimmick over on him. And he's right. I'd been in the business for quite a few years when this happened. And he just thought God and the world owed him a living. They didn't.
There was some people that believed that he was actually possibly the illegitimate son of Paul Bosch. What are your thoughts on that?
I had heard that, but to my knowledge, I don't know what happened there. He may have been.
When you were working in Houston, either as a kid, working in the office for Paul, or as a wrestler later on, did you have any contact with Gino Hernandez?
Oh, of course, yeah. Gino was a couple years ahead of me, and Gino did the same thing. We used to go to the matches every Friday night, and Gino was one of the kids I say kid, he was 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me, I think. And he was hanging around. He was El Medico's stepson, Luis Hernandez, and his wife would come. Luis died in Japan of a heart attack, and Gino was a young kid, and we were young kids, Bruce and I, and Gino would talk to Paul, and then Gino eventually became a second, take the jackets back, and then he would sit next to Paul as Paul's assistant, and then eventually he started wrestling. And as soon as Gino started wrestling, I actually called Paul one day during lunch at school, and I said, "Mr. Bosch, if there ever comes an opportunity, I'd love to be a second, just like Gino." and and lo and behold, it was about a month later when Tommy Fouché was going on vacation, and then Paul came up and said, "Would you like to be a second next week?" And I said, "My God, does the Pope shit in the woods? It's very Catholic." So that's how that happened. But Gino had already progressed, and Gino was one of those guys that uh, had it. He had it. No matter what you could say, he was. A lot of people said he was above average worker, but I think he was more than that. I think he just had this quality about him. He was not a baby face. He was a natural asshole. He was a natural heel, and that takes talent too. There's some people who are just playing a bad guy. Gino was the role. Gino was the $1 million man. Gino wore the suit. Gino had everything, the Armani and the shoes and the tie. He looked the part from day. Well, he kind of fell into it, but even from day one, he looked like he was special. So yeah, I knew Gino. I worked with Gino a few times. But I think Gino had a chip on his shoulder with everybody. He just was like that with everybody. And I think it was later on when he probably relaxed a little bit and eased off because that happens as you get older. But I also think he saw the business for what it was, and he knew he was taken care of in Dallas. He loved the Von Erichs. The Von Erichs loved him. Gary loved him, and I think once he fell into that, once he got comfortable, he didn't have to be so much of an asshole. But I really didn't see him much before he passed away.
Jake told me in my interview with Jake that he'd heard that Gino had some involvement with the gay community. Did you ever hear anything that he may have been bisexual?
Yeah, that was always a rumor. I mean, he had a best friend who owned a club in Houston. His name was Walter. But yeah, there were always rumors, whisperings, if you will. But it was also whisperings that he was Paul's illegitimate son, and that I don't believe was the case either. But who knows? And even I think even back then nobody really cared. I mean,
No.
there might have been, there might have been a few people who did, but it was just more or less like this guy would come with him, Walter, and Walter might have looked a little odd or a little different, and that might have been. I'm sure that's where the rumors came from. But Gino had his share of women too. He had his share of really, really nice looking ladies, and so whatever, whatever. I mean, yeah, there was always whispers.
I think Jake just brought it up to illustrate the point that he had some secret lives in various different aspects.
Oh, Gino had a lot of secrets. I don't doubt that because I knew a couple secrets that I'll keep secret, but Gino had secrets, and once again, I think that time period lended itself to guys having either odd habits or odd secrets, and they shared them with very, very, very few people. And uh, it was a quirky time. It was a wild time. You would have been right in the Killer Carl Cox division in the '80s. You would have been that guy because uh, there was a danger in the air. It was like Brody. When Brody came in, he was a calm before the storm, but you knew you didn't want to go in and dance in the water and rile up the waves, because if you did, then it wasn't going to stop until he wanted to stop. But there was that element of danger. There was that element of, I'm not sure this guy's really all there or not. And that's what you wanted. You wanted the doubt. You wanted that mystery. You wanted that not everybody knows everything about you. And Gino was that guy, because there were years he would just work one night a week, Houston, Texas, in the main event. And he would dress to the nines, and they would draw money. And this was when, Paul Bosch, you can make a $5,000 payoff. Let me repeat that. You could make a $5,000 payoff in Houston, Texas, or usually it was $2,000 or 25, whatever the average main eventer was. Gino was in that slot, and he drew, and he didn't have to work anywhere else. And there was a time when that's all he did. And of course, he got involved with a lot of the things that everybody got involved with back then. And some people knew when to take the foot off the gas, and others didn't. So that was just that time. And I'm, I don't want to romanticize it, but I do say, I will have to say it was certainly, oh shit, it's a different business all the time, but it was certainly a lot more fun to me. It really was.
Yeah, now it's more, let's go back to the hotel and pop in a video game.
When Chris found me, when I was in Florida, I was still working as a makeup artist, and he goes, you know what, he said, why don't you move to Dallas? Because I've got this great idea that of this angle I want to do with Gino Hernandez. Because Chris and I had a daughter, obviously, Jade, which we would fly back and forth between us. I thought, you know what, this probably would be better off for Jade to have both her parents. And Chris actually got me a condo that he sorted out for me. I hadn't met his wife at the time. I asked how that would work out, because I had no romantic feelings for Chris. But we had managed to put the past behind us and move on and become friends. And that's when I moved into the condo in Lovers Lane and directly next door to Gino. And that would be the first time I met Gino as a neighbor, and settled into living in Dallas.
And of course, I guess you actually went out with Gino Hernandez, and you were also friends with him.
Oh, I didn't date Gino, really. I was very good friends with him.
But you did go out on the town with him, right? Because you definitely talk about one of those occasions in your book.
Oh, I went out with Gino quite a few times, but I only saw him wrestle the once. I didn't really know anything other than him as a neighbor. I saw the hair match with the Von Erichs. That was the only match I saw. Directly after that match, they had their head shaved. And I was invited to that event, which was great. I think it was the Cotton Bowl, I think.
Yeah. I think that was the second Cotton Bowl.
Yeah. After that event, which I went there with Chris and Tony, we all got back to our condos, and, they were like high as a kite, because it was a great night, great house.
And everyone was doing drugs in that territory at the time, right? Because it was the 80s and that territory was known for it.
It was with Kevin and Kerry, and we got back to the condos, and I was sitting at Chris and Tony's apartment, and Gino comes knocking on the door. I hadn't been anything but just friends with Gino, which I didn't really see him. He was like really happy, and Chris said, "You drive with Gino, and I'll drive with Tony." and I got in Gino's Porsche, and from the condo to the nightclub, he probably went about 100 miles an hour, and he's looking at me, he's all glazed, and he offered me a piece of paper, which he's going, oh, no, it'll be fine, look after you. I didn't know what it was or anything like that, but I think he'd just come back from Hawaii, he said, and I think he got acid. It was acid. But we got to the nightclub, and everybody was overly excited, and we had a lot of fun that night. We, just were hanging out at the bar. Everybody was laughing, and I just remember Gino laughing at me because I was trying to walk to the bathroom, and it felt like my feet were going into the floor. So I was like, oh my God, and I went around the edge of the nightclub, with my hands up against the walls, just laughing. And after that, we did get back to the apartment. Gino went back to his apartment, and I went back to Chris and Tony's apartment, and Chris stripped off naked and dumped in the swimming pool. There was a pool where everyone could use, and yelling, and he was just jumping in there, and everybody, it was just crazy, that night. Yeah.
How popular was Gino in those days? Because we did an interview with Missy Hyatt recently, and she said that the girls just absolutely loved him.
Well, I didn't know because I didn't see.
Oh, they would just arrive literally just a little time before he passed, I guess. Is that it?
I only knew him for a few months, you see, because I got there in 85 and he passed in 86. But we saw each other all the time, and basically Gino, after the night we went out in the nightclub, he was a member of a really cool nightclub called the Rio Room. It was one of the really exclusive nightclubs. You had to be a member to get in there, and he said to me, oh, come on, let's go. So we went that night to the nightclub, and he was perfectly fine and acting normal in the club, and we stayed there together for it was just Gino and I with some of his friends for a few hours. And when we got to the apartment, we said, oh, we'll have a beer in his apartment. And basically, he opened the cupboard of his kitchen cupboard, and he reached up on the top and he brought down a cereal bowl, which was full of cocaine. It was a lot of cocaine, and he started using a lot of cocaine. And it wasn't very long, maybe 15, 20 minutes after that he got very, very paranoid, very quiet, and his demeanor changed, and he started sort of looking out the window, and there was one part where he had a gun that they write about in the book, and what happened is he actually turned on the water to his sink, and he put the plug in to the sink, and the water was filling up and then coming over the top of the sink onto the floor, so it was flooding the kitchen. So my natural reaction was I walked up to pour the plug out, so my hand into the sink, into the water to pour the plug out, and Gino grabbed my hand to stop me doing that, and he kind of pulled me back. He was holding me really tight at my waist. I was kind of holding on to the fridge door because he had me in a really tight grip, and I was trying to just talk to him, and he was like, shh, no, be quiet, and I twisted around, and he actually had a gun in his hand, and I was like, oh my God, Gino, like that, shh, no, and the water was still pouring over the sink. With about 15 minutes standing there and without saying anything. That was exactly a week before he died. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a scratchy throat.
And when he passed away, from what I understand, it said they found the cocaine in his stomach from the alleged overdose. So, do you find that's a little bit weird, because most people are not gonna eat cocaine? They're usually gonna snort it or maybe smoke it. From what I understand, some people used to roll it up in cigarettes in that territory. But do you find that a little odd that he had the cocaine in his stomach?
Yeah, I guess, but I can also say that 1 week before, when I was actually with him the whole night, and for hours and hours that night, he was super paranoid. He had put the gun down, but he used so much cocaine. I actually did think he could OD that night, and I was like, oh my God, he did end up snapping out of it. And he actually said, look, stay here. I'm going to go out. And I did stay in his apartment alone for a while, but I was very tired because we'd been to the Rio room and all the stuff with the gun and that. And I actually phoned up Tony, and she popped down to sit with me, and I actually left the apartment. I saw Gino the next morning. I went over to his apartment and said, oh, I'm so sorry, I was so tired. And he said, you really must think I'm a moron. And no, I don't think you're a moron. I said to him, so how are you feeling now? How do you feel now? And he said, oh, I feel great. And he looked great, and he acted just normal again. But I heard about the cocaine in his stomach. I was around the whole week. I saw him most days. And I actually was the last person to see him alive, and we did do a Vice special that investigated Gino's death.
And that hasn't aired yet, right? That's going to air maybe this year,
that
later
is
this
in
year.
February.
Oh, next February, okay.
Yeah, it's going to be in October, but they moved it to February.
Because for those that don't know, Vice is doing a whole series, right? Vice is doing a whole series on wrestling mysteries and tragedies, I guess.
Yeah. As much as I, hear the different people and maybe he got murdered and that, I actually don't think so. My own opinion is because I saw him. The last time I saw him was the Thursday prior to his death. And I was actually at Chris's apartment, and Chris had now gone to the UK because I'd had that blinding angle.
Yeah, so he had to disappear for a while.
Yeah, and I was at Chris's apartment because I was keeping an eye on it. I had the key to Chris's apartment, and I was on the balcony sort of airing out the apartment, and here comes Gino's car, and he gets out the car and he looks up and he goes, hey kiddo, like waved at me, and he look at what I got here, and he said it was a peach pie. He had a box in his hand. He said it was a peach pie, and that was the Thursday, and he was like, oh, I'm going to go out. Whether he did go out or not, I don't know, but the next day, his car was parked very out of line, like the wheels were kind of turned in a funny position, like he'd driven and he hadn't really thought about how he was parking, which wasn't usual for him. Then I knocked on his door because I thought his car was parked like that, and having the memories of the week before with the gun, I was just going to go check on him. So I knocked on his door and there was no answer. And a little bit later on, I saw his car hadn't been moved. And I knocked on his door again. I could see through his door, and I saw the box with the pie. What he said was the pie on his table. And nothing really was anything wrong in his apartment. And, excuse me just one sec. I'm so sorry, I have a bad cold. So a couple of more days passed. I did say to my friend Vicky, who lived there, Gino's car hasn't been moved, and I think something's really wrong, because he's not responding and nothing's moved in his apartment, because I could see through the window nothing has moved. And you see, I hadn't been going to any of the matches at the Sportatorium, so I did not know anybody like David Manning or Rick Hazard. I had nobody's phone number, and Chris had gone to the UK, so I didn't have a contact of anybody to call and say, do you want to come over and check on Gino? And I was terrified that he may be sleeping, or he may be dropped his car off and went somewhere, and he may have all that cocaine, and if I called somebody, would he get in trouble? So it was kind of a strange point of not knowing what was the right thing to do. It's a bit of a dilemma. Oh my God, is he okay? Maybe he's not okay, but what if I were to call the police, would he be mad at me? So I was only young. I was like in my 20s, and I didn't know anybody to reach out to. Next day after that, which I believe was the Tuesday, I saw lights of the ambulance and the police. Kind of people, Gino's door was open, and, I just thought, oh my God. I actually feel really terrible, because I kind of knew something might have been wrong, and then they rule out his body. And it just sort of like, it's one of those surreal moments. Like when you watch 9/11, you go, hold on a second, that plane didn't really just hit into that tower. Am I seeing things? It was kind of like a surreal moment that you're like, you don't want to think it could be true. But I phoned up Chris, and Tony actually answered the phone and shut out the biggest scream. And I didn't know who the people were that were there. I think it may have been David Manning and Rick Hazard, but I wouldn't have known them at that time. But I did know Walter, because I'd seen Walter all the time at Gino's apartment. And he was very upset. He actually came up to Chris's apartment to talk to me. Walter was the person that I think alerted the police. I'm not sure, or it was David Manning. I don't know what went on prior to the police coming at all. What happened to any cocaine or whatever. But I did speak to, what do they call the people that ruled the body out? Is it coroner or something like that?
The coroners are the ones that investigate the cause of death. I guess the people that wheel the body just work for the funeral home. I forget what they're called.
One of those people, I spoke to one of them, and, they said that it looked like he just fell down like a tree. He was face down, the gun was there, and I thought it was in his bedroom, in the corner in his bedroom, that he died. And, I think in my mind, he probably, because the body had actually decomposed, forgiven, a lot by then. And I believe he probably died on that same night I saw him with the pie box, because I think he'd probably been dead 2 or 3 or 4 days, even when I was knocking on the door. But I didn't know, because where I could see in to his apartment, he was actually in his bedroom, where his body was, in the corner in his bedroom, which I could only see the living area, the dining area, and the kitchen, and I couldn't see through to his bedroom. But
and you knew he had a cereal bowl full of cocaine, so you didn't want to alert the police. That's obvious.
Well, look, I'm young, I'm frightened, very naive.
Yeah, I understand.
Had even left, but I did get a serious feeling of his car not being moved, that there was a problem. And I told my friend Vicky, I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. Nobody to reach out to that I knew, because I wasn't, going to the matches or anything. So I don't think, anyway, there would have been anything they could have done, because he'd already obviously been dead for a few days. So when I was knocking on the door, he was actually already dead, because there's no way he hadn't died, quite some time when they actually took the body out. The next day, I did go into his apartment because Walter was there and he invited me into the apartment. And, obviously that, no disrespect to Gino, but obviously there was an odor. And I did go into his apartment the next day. I walked to the bathroom and they cut out the carpet in the corner where I think Walter probably cut out the carpet where he, had laid for several days.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.